Right now, we need more power, more infrastructure, and more people who can actually build it. We also need to do that in a political environment that still makes long-term energy investment harder than it has to be. Welcome to Project Vanguard, where veterans and mission-driven leaders share what it takes to build American energy dominance. I'm your host, Kevin Doffing. My guest today is Joshua Bice, an Army veteran who works as an independent consultant in project development for utility-scale solar and storage assets. Joshua is close to the work, and that is what makes this episode useful. We talk about what the industry is seeing right now as demand keeps rising. AI drives more load growth, and the country has to think more seriously about how it's going to build enough reliable energy. We also get into why an all-the-above energy strategy is the practical answer once you get past the rhetoric. We talk about why veterans fit into the energy and infrastructure industry so well, what they bring to it, and how credibility matters in a space this important. We also get into the impact of policy uncertainty and why it becomes a real problem when you're trying to finance and build long-term infrastructure. You'll walk away with a practical way to think about this moment in energy and why veterans should be part of leading it. Let's get into it.
Josh, man, hey, thanks for making the time today, brother.
My pleasure. Been looking forward to this, honestly.
I know, we had to reschedule a couple times.
Well, we're both busy. I don't think I'm as busy as you these days, but schedules are tight.
I keep getting told that. It's funny with Gabby coming on now as our chief of staff. She's like, I have to turn off your calendar because it gives me anxiety just looking at it.
Yeah, I don't doubt that. Although you really built this thing out. So, congrats on that. It's amazing to see what the trajectory's been just in a short period of time.
Thanks, man. But I mean, it's been good. It's great to see the community grow. It's great to see folks getting together. And now we had a great RU Plus Northeast. We had a bunch of guys and gals out there. And now we're kind of getting our booth game down. We're actually packing up a rifle case with all the accessories, the pop-up banner, whatever. And it just happened that a rifle case is like the best hard case that we could get.
Very on brand.
To meet our needs.
Yeah.
Once we made that decision, I was like, hey, you know what we need to hold all the little pieces of swag? Ammo cans.
That gives me a good idea. I might have to start bringing my med pack to these conferences, kit it out. Actually, that would be a great thing for popping IVs morning after, right?
I was about to say, Tuesday morning after the opening happy hour, just some rehydration at the Project Vanguard rally point.
Yeah. I mean, it would throw you right back to the barracks at 3 a.m., right? Everybody walking around with their own bag.
Okay, see, I didn't have this. My doc went to UT, and I went to A&M, and he refused to give me an IV when I was hungover. And I was like, come on, man. He's like, no, we got to save this. We're about to deploy. I'm like, we'll get more IVs. I'm hurting today.
I was going to question his dedication to the job for a second, but then when you said it was just for a hangover, I was like, oh, that's okay. You can restrict that.
Oh, yeah, no. Love doc. You can't ever bash doc. That's like asking to get shot the next day if you bash doc.
Yeah, you get on the good side of the people that carry you, feed you, the chow hall guys you really want to be on the good side of. Yeah, it's a short list of the people you just absolutely don't.
Medics, CBs, everybody else.
CB, those guys are amazing. Unreal, right?
I don't like sleeping on the floor.
No.
I would have been sleeping on concrete a lot if it weren't for them.
That might have been the greatest day of my entire deployment back in 2009 and 10. They came in and we were working out in our little gym was in a tent with no AC for the longest time. And they came in about 2 days, threw an AC unit in, whipped up a little wooden hut, and you can go in there and not die. It's great.
Yeah. You also have to make sure the thing works properly. We were at a house that we, commandeered in Ramadi. It would be, 100 plus everywhere. And then in the little hooch where we had one unit for the command staff, it would be 60. So I'd have to take off my fleece when I came out of my room where everyone's like, you mother. I'm like, I'm freezing. I realize I am a soft, fragile officer, but it's cold in there, guys.
You could have just said officer and we would have gotten it.
That is very true.
That's one of maybe, I'll try and keep it to a minimum in terms of the enlisted versus commission thing, but I got to get a couple in.
I mean, technically I enlisted and then went OCS. It was just a very brief enlisted tenure.
That's why I like you. All right. Okay.
I know.
Yeah.
But I was that weird college option kid. So it's you're not really a ROTC kid. You're definitely not an Academy kid, but you're definitely not a Mustang. On pay grade, I had an E5 rank while I was at OCS, and everyone made sure to let me know, you are not an actual E5. I'm like, fine, I get it. I've earned nothing. Thank you, sir. May I have another?
Yeah, getting those stripes. A lot of times they're going to be earned. It's tough to get to E5.
That's right. Oh, man. So what's going on with you these days?
Oh, I'm kind of transitioning from the PE world, some of those bigger entities with kind of large scale campuses, into some more independent consulting work, going out and striking out on my own a little bit. So a little bit of consulting here and there, not as long a weeks, which is great.
Yeah.
That private equity money tends to drive you into the ground a little bit, which is all well and good. Right? We get great things done, build insane stuff at a crazy pace and all of those things. I was able to do that a couple of times after kind of having some experience in smaller shops, and now going back to those grassroots origination days.
No, I mean, I think that the independent consultancy in your mid 30s to mid 40s is always this great bridge. I've done it several times. Once you get it down, it's a nice fallback where you don't worry if you don't like where you're at or if something unexpected happens, because you've got a network, you've got a skill set, the market landscape, and you can go out there and get 1 to 3 clients for 3 to 12 month, retainers, and you basically can cover your bills, and you date a lot of companies to figure out what you want to do next. I mean, Project Vanguard was one of those.
Yeah.
It was a pilot project under my consulting of like, hey,
that's right.
Would people like to have a bunch of vets in this industry? What if I did that? What would that look like? Would you pay me to do that? And it started slow, and then suddenly I do vet stuff full time.
Vet stuff full time.
That's what I tell my kids.
Other than the fact that we don't really get to chat and catch up as much as we used to, especially when I was down there in Houston with you at the same time, it really has been great to see just the community build on itself. It shocks me how many people we have in that Slack channel now from where you started. When I remember you first coming to me and talking to me about, you got a little bit of funding, a little seed money to start this thing up.
I think we were doing that were you still in Houston when we were talking about that?
Yeah. I was still down in Texas. I might have been in Austin at the time, but yeah.
That was when I ran those Energy Underground lunches.
Those were great.
They were. It was a shame that nobody wanted to pick up the tab and keep them going.
Yeah. That hub that we met at was just an amazing space. Yeah. And that whole area, the Greentown was across the street, and they've really developed out quite a bit more from what I hear. I haven't been down there in a minute, but just a great area with a ton going on.
Yeah, they're building out a bunch more stuff. Just so everybody knows, I doubt anybody listening to this knows what the Energy Underground stuff is. Could you explain it to them from your perspective?
The Energy Underground, it was that whole area down there, Greentown across the street, Ion in there, was really heavy, honestly. There was a lot of clean tech, a handful of renewables, some traditional O&G, services companies, and those types of things. And that space had just a ton of stuff going on. It was really alive. The energy was great, no pun intended. But the Energy Underground thing was a series that you had hosted for a little while, put a bunch of people in the same room, which is honestly, from my perspective, especially at that time, we had just, myself and a couple of business partners endeavored to start up our own thing. So going to those was so beneficial, just to talk to people, even that weren't you couldn't necessarily directly work with. Well, just to get exposure to other people trying to do this same stuff in a lot of cases, especially like on the clean tech side, trying to do much more difficult things than we were doing, just trying to get projects off the ground or originate renewable deals. But from our perspective, it was great just to be in the room with those type of people that were trying to do some of the same things that we were. Obviously, it was on you to start that whole thing up and get everybody in the same place.
I don't think a lot of people that were involved in that really knew. So we did that for 2 years. Once a month, we'd do a lunch down there, literally in the underground.
Yeah.
But it was Tom Wyrick with EDP, who leads all their comms.
Mm.
And I remember when he and I were having breakfast, maybe the first or second time we'd met at a Barnaby's, I think it was. He was like, we should have like more salon type things, like French salons of different people from different backgrounds, just talking about energy and just really like having great speakers and all this kind of stuff. And the idea was bring everybody together. And when we started that, it was just a few friends of mine like, hey, I'm really busy with this O&M sales stuff. I don't have time to like keep making introductions. So y'all just need to all meet each other and not use me as an information broker. Like, y'all just need to connect. And they were like, hey, this is good. Can we do this again? And we ran it for like 3 or 4 months before I allowed anybody to invite somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
And then once they were allowed to, they started bringing in more people. And I mean, we'd usually have 30 to 60 people, and it would be a mix of like private equity investors, venture capitalists. You'd have a little bit of IB. You'd have founders. You'd have oil and gas energy transition leads, people from oil and gas that just wanted to know about this space. We were trying to get jobs in it. People new to town who were trying to figure out the energy layout, ecosystem jobs. You had renewable energy project developers, manufacturers. I mean, it was a little bit of everything.
It was a wide breadth. And that was honestly, we probably started coming somewhere in the middle there. Certainly weren't at the beginning. By the time we were there, it really was, you could talk to somebody on the EPC side. You could talk to somebody on the manufacturing side. You could try and pitch your stuff to a VC or PE group. So yeah, just the breadth of tools that were kind of available to go out there and try and market yourself a little bit or learn from others. That was amazing. Honestly, that space, you could have gone in there and spent no time in your office and just gone to that underground area and gotten so much out of that area.
Oh, I think they still have some free time and space there. But yeah, we only had 3 rules of the energy underground. Oil and gas isn't evil, climate change is real, and don't be an asshole.
That's right. Yeah, I remember the last one very succinctly.
Well, and then after, like we did all this stuff with like kid stuff, you're not an asshole. Just don't act like an asshole.
Don't be, yeah, right. I didn't call you an asshole. I said you're acting like an asshole.
You made bad choices like an asshole. And then help somebody, right? The big thing was always like, how can I help?
Yeah, we still take that to heart in every transaction we go out and try and do and call it whatever you want to call it from whatever background you come from. But I think that's how you get anything that you want to accomplish in life, right? More broadly, is how do I help you achieve the things that you want to achieve? And if the synergy's there, then it's probably going to happen.
Yeah. And that's one of the things that we try to bring in with Project Vanguard is like, how can we help you? That's the big thing with the vets. A lot of times it's finding a new job or finding just a peer network or, someone that can commiserate with you or just hash out, hey, I did this, 15 years ago and I want to relive some of those times.
It has been pretty great, actually. I've had probably about a half a dozen people reach out to me cold from the group that are just looking for information or looking for a little bit of advice on how to crack the industry or whatever it may be. And I was actually checking the Slack channel yesterday ahead of this, and that jobs channel has blown up.
Mm-hmm.
There's a ton of activity in there. So this platform that's being built, I think, is certainly more than sustainable.
Yeah, I mean, the more that we just get people that want to do it. So Josh, what does energy security mean to you?
Energy security, it's one of the core tenets, right? Energy security is national security.
That's right. That's what I say.
The crazy AI push that we have right now and just the sheer size and scale of some of these installations that we're doing with one of the other core tenets, which is all of the above. I can't tell you the last project I didn't build for some gigantic AI center. Here within the last year and a half, I can't tell you a project that I built that didn't have some intersectionality with natural gas, interconnection positions with both renewables and energy storage.
Mm-hmm.
These projects are turning into just massive resiliency plays. And these companies will tell you through and through that if we can't win this technology race as it relates to AI, then our national security is really at risk. So, I tried to get out of the government as best I could. You keep getting pulled back in some manner, right?
Yeah.
Where you try and build these projects for a private institution, but especially as it relates to above a certain size and scale, you're dealing with FERC and NERC and all of these other things, literally is national security, right? There are national security nexuses with all of those regulatory aspects.
Makes total sense, man. Why do you think that veterans get pulled into this industry so often?
Oh, you have the statistics on this, right? How much higher is the veteran representation in the energy industry?
It's like double compared to general industry.
Yeah. I wish I had a good answer for you. I don't know that I do. I would love to hear a thought from your end as to why that is.
So it's very analogous, right? Similar cultures. It's operation and safety focused. It's about field excellence. It's a conservative culture, right? It's not about move fast, break things. It's about get things done day after day after day, which requires focus, attention to detail, safety in the long run while doing dangerous things, not risk aversion, but risk mitigation. And I think just the sheer fact that when they started deploying a lot of nuclear in the 60s and 70s, you just start bringing in a ton of Navy, and it's just really snowballed. And renewables is a utility game. So it's come out of the utilities, and it is just such a great place for vets to be involved.
Yeah. I don't know if you know this off the top of your head, but is there a breakdown of that representation in terms of what field specialties they're in? Because I do see a lot of this in like procurement, supply chain, construction, O&M.
Just anecdotally.
Yeah.
Yeah. Development and project management seem to be like the two big things. Safety is probably a distant third. General field service. I was just on the phone with Vestas last week, and I think they were saying like 60% of their wind techs are vets.
Yeah. I mean, that makes total sense.
Yeah. I mean, like, I really want to try to do a research project where we go out and we really get that evaluated across the industry. So, like, when are they moving in? Okay, if 60% of vets in the industry are moving to project management, is that like as they're transitioning out, they have other roles, they've got a PMP, they got an MBA, they were officers, they were enlisted, they were, 6 years in, 12 years in, so they're more senior enlisted, all the shades so we know like where are we hitting and what are we missing? Because 90% of the transitioning force is less than 6 years every year, right? So like 90% of transitioning, 180,000 a year are enlisted. And then the majority of that are junior enlisted. So we're constantly having to replace what we're putting out. And there's just a ton of talent that's coming out that is ready for early career stuff, either in the enlisted field side is coming out, or, okay, they just got out 2 to 4 years ago, finished up college on the GI Bill, and now they're ready for those project management roles with a college education and the credentialing and this and that. So it'd be really interesting to see a lot more in depth. And how does that change by state? If you're near a military base versus, someplace like Houston where we really don't have that flag planted locally, but we have a huge veteran population.
Yeah.
So we're a huge recruiting source, but we're also a huge ETS source where people land. How's that playing out?
Well, whenever you get that report, run. Would love to see it.
Go write me a check. We'll get it done.
That sounds expensive.
Josh, what do you think is the biggest bottleneck right now for our industry?
Partisanship. Say more. One of my favorite ones that have come out here in the last couple of years, favorite sayings, is electrons don't have a political party, right? They're as neutral can be.
Well, they're negative. I mean, like.
Well, there you go. Yeah. Engineering joke for everybody out there. We're already seeing this a little bit here in the last couple of years from a policy and regulatory standpoint, right? Scared money doesn't invest.
Yeah.
And we're starting to see, especially a lot of these international players, these larger international utilities, get out of the American market or divest large sums of money from the American market. And it's because of the policy uncertainty. So we really need to get on the same page and not even tweak stuff, right, from every 2 to 4 years. So if we can get some consistency as it relates to tax code, as it relates to all of these things that allow investment vehicles to be sure of assets that are going to last for 30 or 40, or in the pump storage, hydroelectric game, 100+ year assets, right? Nobody's going to go out and spend $1 billion if they think in 4 years that things might change and that money may be at risk.
Where can Project Vanguard and the veteran community play in that space to help move things along?
I mean, I think we're already doing it, right? These legislative days going on to the Hill in these various counties and states. You guys also joined the DC day last year, right? As well. So last year, the year before. And again, this is like kind of a core tenet here at Project Vanguard, right? We can be really good messengers for this. Because from that perspective, I think it might carry a little bit more weight than the average voter if we go on to the Hill and say, these are the things that we're seeing in the industry. And we're kind of that intersectionality that can really carry a lot of weight.
Yeah. And I mean, our voice carries a little bit more because if only once at one time we raised our hand to say country before self.
Mm-hmm.
So it helps that voice go further.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, that's all this is, right? We're trying to create a stable, coherent framework for the country and our future.
That's it, man. And that's how we're going to win.
That's how we're going to win.
So Josh, take me back. How did you get into the military? What was that like to make that decision?
Oh, man. I graduated high school, went to a junior college. I thought I was going to play baseball for the rest of my life.
I smell a great enlistment story coming up.
That's what got me to Houston, actually. I took a Greyhound bus from northern Idaho to Houston, Texas. It took me 3 days. Everything I owned was going to live that professional athlete dream. And that lasted all of that JUCO to MLB dream did not come to fruition. Go figure. I think this would be a different conversation. But that lasted less than a year. I thought, what do people in this position do for a scholarship when they don't have that? Went down to the recruiter's office and I was off to basic training about a month later. And then, the age old, how did you pick your MOS? They give you the list of the 10 most needed. And I was like, well, I don't want to be an infantryman or a cavalryman or a fuel supply specialist. Yeah, no kidding. And go figure, I was a field medic and I just stuck around with the cavalry and infantry my entire career anyway. So
I was about to say, yeah, they don't really deploy the medics outside of combat arms. So
no, I was hoping I could just hang out at a clinic the whole time. It was not to be.
That's okay. I had some infantry guys that felt the same way. Can I just hang out there? I'm on profile.
We all knew those guys.
Oh my God. I bet you just like first name basis with all of them. Although, as we were talking earlier, you don't really use the first name.
Never. No. It's either a nickname that nobody ever wants or your last name.
All my squad leaders at the beginning of my tour had first names for last names. Tom, it was Thompson, but we just call him Tommy. Wilson was Willie. Roberts was just Rob.
I'm so happy in life, as an aside, that I didn't get stuck with 2 first names. That was a win.
That is true. As you go through this medic life, like, what makes you decide, hey, this has been enough. I'm out.
I decided to join into 06. Went to basic very beginning of 07. My service ended in 2012. Right around that year, I got back home in 2010. And during that time between 10 and 12, it was the thought, do I sign up for another one of these?
Because you'd already recommitted. I mean, 6 years, you didn't go in on an initial contract for 6. You re-upped.
Nope, initial contract. Yeah. Plus the 2 on IRR.
Wow.
Oh, I went all the way. My recruiter, he did a job.
That guy knows how to get his bonus.
He really did. I should have known. You don't know what you don't know at the time, right? I didn't even have any family that I knew of that was ever in the military. So I didn't really have an unbiased advisor, if you will, before I joined or went down to the recruiter's office. And I should have known in retrospect that going to a recruiter that was an E4 was probably a mistake.
Oh my God, are you serious? You got taken in by the E4 Mafia recruiter?
Recruiter. I don't know how the hell he got that position either as an E4, but I would assume that at one point he might have been an E5. And then I never saw him again, go figure.
How do you get demoted while you're on recruiting duty?
Yeah, who knows? That's just an assumption. That's my working theory, but who knows?
Oh my God.
I got taken in. I got taken through the ringer by the recruiter. Those are some of my favorite stories, if I'm being honest. Across the services this is the recruitment stories and the MEP stories.
When you're getting out, what did you decide to do after that?
Oh my goodness. In all honesty, I floundered for 6, 8, 10 months, something like that, trying to figure out what the next step was. And I eventually just started doing something really similar. I joined the Forest Service and learned how to become a firefighter, wildland firefighter. And I was on hotshot crew for about 2.5 years out of Arizona. And man, it was basically identical other than, you don't get shot at. You get to stand next to a giant fire all day.
So you went from Idaho to Texas to military. To Arizona. Back to Houston, Utah, California now.
Colorado was in there as well.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I forgot about that one.
A couple of years I spent traipsing across Latin America trying to get projects built.
Okay, so talk about your energy projects in Latin America. I love this.
Oh, my goodness. Once I got out of the Forest Service, I just kind of happened into a job with VP at the time that exclusively hired from former athletes and former military. That was his whole hiring strategy.
And look at you, Venn diagram.
Oh my goodness, right? He saw me coming from a mile away, said, we could take advantage of this guy, pay him nothing. He'll do everything.
You and recruiters, man, they keep finding you.
Doing that transition is a lot of people that have this journey. I didn't have a degree or anything at the time either. I had used a lot of my GI Bill to go to school and take interesting courses and do stuff like that, but I was never really degree seeking. Don't tell anybody at the VA that. But
secret safe with me.
You're supposed to be degree seeking when you do these things. So I changed my major about 5 times so I could take the courses that I wanted to take at any given time, but never got the degree. So when I got into the private sector, it was kind of a hill to climb, right? It was all on the job. And I just kind of happened into one that paid decent, and got me some exposure into like the sustainability and energy trades. And then about the 10th or 11th time, one of my clients asked me to stop working there and come work for them. I was like, yeah, that sounds good. That was another startup. And then decided to go strike out on my own. Found a couple of business partners, one of whom was a dual citizen in Ecuador, that's in New York. And we tried here stateside, some stuff in Colorado, a little bit of stuff in New Mexico, California, kept running these high barriers to entry, especially as it related to like land option payments or interconnection positions, those types of things. One day, strategically just said, why don't we try Latin America? Ecuador is pegged to the US dollar. We can take away the foreign currency risk. The barrier to entry is so much lower right there. They're so much further back on the adoption curve in terms of renewables that really nobody's trying to do it at that time down there. This is a great one. I sold my car, put all my stuff in storage, got rid of my apartment, took a one-way ticket, went down there and tried to make some stuff happen.
Did you take another Greyhound or this time you flew?
This time, yeah, all the way through Mexico and Central America.
I mean, listen, man, you've been doing some crazy stuff, so I don't put anything past you.
That is true. It wouldn't have been a Greyhound. It wouldn't have been a Greyhound. It would just been some like rickety bus van thing. But no, cheap flight from Houston to Quito, and just kind of started at it from the grassroots up. That's one thing about this work, regardless of where you're at. If you're not on the ground and talking to people, then you're not going to get anything done.
Yeah. What was your biggest surprise when you were working down there?
How open people are with the request of a bribe.
The hands on top of the table, not below.
Yeah. With the first one, we couldn't have been down there for a month or two at this point. And there was a gentleman that was in the Ministry of Energy at the time. And he asked us to meet him across the street at 5:00 from his office building at this German brewery or brew pub thing. There's a big German influence down there in Quito. Don't know why.
Huh.
But we meet him across the street and we realized why I didn't want to meet in his office. I mean, the first thing out of his mouth was like, yeah, man, I can get this done for you. All it's going to cost is X amount of money.
There it is.
Yeah. We struggled with it for a minute, but it's one of those things where it's like you try and take your Western sensibilities to some of these developing world countries and you're never going to get anything done. And B, that's a little colonialist, if you will.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like their idea is, well, we do this. And in America, we're like, yeah, but we just pay lawyers to do this. And it's like,
we route it around.
This feels the same, but you have a false air of superiority.
Right. There you go. So that was probably the biggest surprise. And then just the sheer, there's still red tape. It's just different red tape. They don't do things in Latin America and certain parts of Europe. They just don't do things on the same time frame.
Yeah.
Right. They're not motivated the same way that we are here in America by the work.
Inshallah.
Right. There was a gentleman, one of my first weeks down there, that was like, we need to get you an Ecuadorian watch. It has days and weeks on it, not minutes and hours. It's like, oh, okay. But you push through all that stuff. It's the same work at the end of the day. One of my favorite lines is that these projects move at the speed of trust. Right? If you can get down there and really forge relationships and talk, it really doesn't matter where you are. If you get the right stakeholder.
That doesn't sound like a thing just down there. That sounds like how I've seen projects develop in the US too.
Everywhere. Doesn't matter where you are. That was one thing that held true there. You just had to have more patience. So 2 years later in a few projects, and we're talking like 1 to 5 megawatts, primarily microgrid, because a lot of what they do down there in these areas, they're currently on heavy diesel generation. So like a 15-year-old generator from China that's been, it's got duct tape on it and stuff that has heavy unrefined diesel running through it. And that's where your bananas come from or your shrimp at the supermarket.
I did 3 weeks in Quito, Upper Amazon,
nice,
Galapagos for my honeymoon. I was blown away when we were going into the Amazon, how many diesel generators were supporting all operations. And they had a big spill. So we were hoping to see like these pink dolphins that swim in the river. But they'd had such a massive oil spill in the river. And I was like, why do you have an oil spill in the river? Well, we're drilling, we're doing this, we're doing that. And I was blown away by that and the amount of Chinese money floating around. This was 2013, 12, somewhere around there. I mean, they were just pumping money in. You'd see a Schlumberger or a Baker Hughes site, and then you'd see 5 more Chinese sites where they're just bankrolling the infrastructure.
Yeah. There was one, these are the hills you have to climb in areas like this, that Chinese sovereign funds had won a government contract to build a massive hydroelectric dam down there. And they got about 3 or 4 years into this thing, and they're shipping Chinese nationals in there to do all of the work. So it's not like they even use locals to do any of this.
Oh, wow.
It's all their equipment. It's all their labor. They do the whole thing. And by the time they got to about year 3 or 4, the stuff they built in year 0 and 1 was already falling apart. And they just abandoned the thing and went back to China.
No.
And so when we were coming there, part of it's education, right? Because the technology is so new down there and you're telling people this is dependable, this is proven, it's going to be cheaper in the long run, et cetera, et cetera. But the other thing is we're not fly by night. And again, that's another, through line, regardless of where you develop, and really infrastructure of all kinds, right? Is trying to differentiate yourself as a long-term player in these markets as opposed to somebody that's just going to come in and build something and leave.
Yeah. Now, I see the stuff that's happened with like the SIVs, with all these, combat interpreters that we had in Iraq and Afghanistan, and just like not taking care of them. I had a buddy that was in Ukraine, and they were talking to somebody like, hey, we just need you to do this. And they're like, nah, man.
We saw how that turned out.
I saw how y'all did the Afghanis.
Yeah.
I'm good. And it's like, it's a national security impediment. We have less force projection now. That stuff drives me crazy.
Yeah. Well, keep your word. If you tell people you're going to do something, you got to follow through on it, especially big stuff like that.
Yeah. Where is that kind of paid dividends for you? Like, is there a time you think about that?
What's that? Which part?
Following through on your word.
I mean, I think it helps more generally in life, right? You're going to find that your interpersonal relationships are much more stable, especially for someone like me who's moved around so much, to be able to call somebody up from 2, 3, 4 endeavors ago and still be able to speak to those things, have that person pick up the phone, be able to ask them for something and they deliver on it, especially in a timely manner. I mean, it's huge, right? Just within the last year, I've done some additional endeavors for some clients in the last year that they're looking for additional project sites in the desert Southwest. And I could pick up the phone for a guy that I built a project 4 or 5 years ago. And he answers the phone and says, I've got 50,000 acres. It's yours if you want it, right?
Yeah. No, I get that. I mean, I end up referring out a lot of people are making introductions. And it's always, if a vet wants an introduction to somebody, great. I'll help you. They can help you in your career. And it just kills me when they don't follow up, because it's like that person that I introduced you to is now less likely to follow up with the next person. You're screwing your buddy. You're totally being a blue falcon by not following through. So what kind of advice are you seeing, as you mentioned earlier, people are reaching out to you on the Slack, you're talking to a bunch of people. What's kind of the through line there on what you're getting asked or how you're helping people?
A lot of it is just the expectation, right? These are folks primarily, at least for my personal conversations, these are folks that have never worked in the industry before. So they're either transitioning in from the military or another industry, or they're coming in after they go and get their BS or MBA and trying to break into the industry. It focuses on expectation. What can I expect? How can I be successful? The one thing I try and tell folks, it's still, oil and gas is kind of its own thing, right? Traditional LNG anyway. Those structures have been around for a long time. And that's a little bit larger industry, even down in Houston, right? People know people, right? It becomes a relatively small industry once you're in it and you're an operator, and even more so on the renewables side. And so just getting in and having those conversations and forging relationships, but not being afraid to take the first step, right? I think that's been a superpower of mine my entire career. Is a lot of people will stay in something that they don't necessarily believe in or don't want to be in anymore because of the fear of what that next thing is. The first step is always the hardest. If you're willing to take that first step and dive in, especially if you have a background in the military or you just went through an MBA program or you have a sustainability degree, just take the first step, find an opportunity that meshes with you in terms of what company you think you might want to work for, and get in and start doing things. I'm a proponent of that stuff because that's the way that I've always learned in my professional career, on the job, right? Get in, start doing things, make plenty of mistakes, and course correct.
No, I love it, man. So for vets that are looking to get in right now, what would be your first step you'd tell them that they need to start with?
This is, again, one that I think I've had in every conversation so far. And my favorite thing whenever I'm looking for another opportunity, and I think this might come a little bit from the startups or the consulting, those types of things, is do your market research on what company you think you would want to work for, right? So if I can go and target a specific company or a short list of companies, as opposed to just going on a job board and like filtering through a bunch of stuff that all have somewhat the same thing, I think you're going to be set up for success a lot more. The bad moves I've made in my career in retrospect have been because I didn't do enough homework on the entity that I was going to work for or the person that I was going to be working under, or whatever it might be from that perspective.
Yeah, makes total sense. I mean, what we always advise people, like, listen, the best way to use Slack if you're trying to get a job is to find someone that works at the company you want to be at, that you found a role, connect with them, don't be an asshole. And then they will go tap HR on the shoulder. They'll help you, but they got to like you first. And you got to be able to establish and build some rapport. Just like you were saying, like, the project, your career is really going to move at the speed of trust.
Yeah. Well, and that's another one, right? People do business with people they like. I mean, the same can be true for trying to find a gig or your next gig. I don't remember the last job that I got or last consulting client that I got that was completely cold.
Yeah. No, I always work off a referral. We've done the best hiring of my entire career right now with Project Vanguard, and it's all been referrals, 100%. Somebody's like, you have to meet this person. I don't need this person. Oh, wait, I think I got a space for them. And it's been a game changer.
Well, at the beginning, right, for these guys, the folks that I've talked to are making the right moves out the gate, right? And I'm sure I'm not the only one that they talk to. But just putting yourself in the room, putting yourself on the Zoom, putting yourself in a networking event, putting yourself out there is the first step in building that industry Rolodex that's going to lead to you not having to make cold calls anymore, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, once you get through your first 3 to 5 years in the industry, it should be a pull function. You should have people you worked with, bosses you reported to, pulling you into the new thing. But if you're going to make this step function change, geography, industry, leaving the military, that's when you really got to rely on these externalities because you just haven't built that organic network yet. Hopefully that's where we can be helpful with Project Vanguard.
Yeah. I mean, I think the platform is already set up to do some of those things. And I think the name of this episode might just be Don't Be an Asshole.
I'm fine with that. I think that's just good life advice. I think that was based on my dad's advice when I came in and took over the company. It's just like, you guys got to tone down your aggression. I know you just came out of combat. It was basically telling me not to be an asshole.
Yeah, which is fair.
I think he's still whispering it. I may just not always be hearing it.
Oh, people love you, Kevin. Come on now.
I feel like I'm tolerated.
At a minimum.
Sufficiently. Well, I mean, at a maximum. I mean, they might just be saying things behind my back. I would appreciate they said them to my face so I could hear the funny things.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you're at the very least self-deprecating. So you got that going for you.
I've had people pull me aside. They're like, you make fun of yourself too much. I'm like, you mean I'm amazing at making fun of myself? This is practice, man.
It does make perfect.
It does, man. Well, Josh, thanks for making time, brother.
My pleasure. Appreciate it. Love being on. It was a good chat.
Thanks for tuning into the Project Vanguard podcast. If this episode sparked something for you, share it with someone who's ready to think differently, whether it's about an all-the-above energy approach, how energy security is national security, or the veteran workforce in our industry. If you believe what we're building, a quick review goes a long way. You can do that wherever you get your podcasts. Until next time, keep up the fire.